So welcome everyone. I certainly appreciate your being with us. This is Scott Talley. I apologize, my face isn't showing. Had a friend who had a heart attack on Friday, and I decided after 3 years I need to go see a doctor, just get a checkup. So it ran over just a couple minutes. So I'll be joining y'all live in about 4 minutes. But I wanted to introduce Chris, who has become a friend of mine over the last few months. Chris is president of Compass Sales Solutions, and he is affiliated with the Sales Acceleration Organization, which is the largest sales management advisory company in the United States. Interestingly enough, Chris started as a chemical engineer, not a born salesperson like some of us. He got an MBA from the University of Chicago and has led global manufacturing and distribution businesses over the past 30 years, including several successful sales-driven turnarounds and revitalization. Today, he works with small and medium-sized businesses as a fractional VP of sales. So I really appreciate Chris stepping in, and I look forward to hearing everything he has to add. And Chris, I'm going to let you take it from here.
All right, thanks, Scott, and great to meet you all. Nice to be here, and I've really enjoyed my interaction with the NIA so far, and looking forward to continued association with the group. And I'm just going to start in and talk today about my topic, which is obstacles to sales growth. It's pretty general, but some things that I've experienced over the years, and the people, my colleagues at Sales Acceleration, have experienced over the years, especially as they pertain to the small and medium-sized business owners. And so this may be relevant to you, I hope, or some of your clients maybe, and hopefully some useful information for you. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, and Daniela will forward them to me. As long as we keep moving forward, hopefully we've got plenty of time to cover this in today's meeting. So just let me see if I can share my screen here, and we'll get started with it. And is that working okay? Screen sharing?
Looks great.
Okay, good. So let me tell you about Steve. Steve was the second generation owner of a family-owned signage printing company. So they're running about $10 million in revenue, and 70% of that was from a single large customer. And they had 3 long-term sales reps, but they really hadn't added any new accounts over the last 3 years. They're just sort of going by business as usual, same way they've been doing business for the last 40 plus years. And but now revenues are down 20%. Their huge big customer is pressuring them to reduce prices, and they've got no effective process to replace them or to build any other business. And so Steve is really close to losing his business before a friend of his connected him with Sales Acceleration, who fortunately was managing to turn those things around. But you know, they just never got around to making those changes first. He always hoped things would improve, but hope isn't a really good strategy. It isn't a very good tactic either. And so Steve almost lost his business, but Sales Acceleration worked with Steve. They transformed his business, became a growth business with 1.9 million or 19% growth even in the first year. And it turned out to be a good company and was able to save that. So today I'm going to talk about some of the kinds of things that we do and the kinds of things that we've seen over the years that affect the small to medium-sized business owners that are obstacles to growing those sales. And so these are the sort of things that it could have kept Steve out of trouble. Hopefully they keep you and your clients out of trouble once you know what to look for and can point them in the right direction. So again, I'm Chris Beasley. I'm president of Compass Sales Solutions. I'm affiliated with Sales Acceleration. And so I've been working for 30 years in sales management, and now I work with the small and medium-sized business owners. So let me just get into this. I'm going to start with just a few slides of things that Sales Acceleration observes. We work with thousands of clients all over the country, and here are some of the things we see. First, 5 out of 10 small business owners or small to medium-sized business owners have not traveled with their salespeople in the last 12 months. And so now the consequence of this is that the small business owner doesn't typically have a sales or marketing leader. So he or she is doing that leadership role themselves. And so getting information directly from the customer, being able to observe the sales rep's interaction with the customer is critical. And even if it's done via Zoom, you can sit in on it and see how it goes. You can make an assessment of how the salesperson interacts with the customer, how well prepared they are, how well they respond to the customer's challenges and questions. And it also allows direct feedback about their product, the service, pivots they need to make to their business, and again, how the sales rep is performing. So that information needs to come from direct observation of the customer, not just second or third hand from what the sales reps say the customers are saying. And so that's number one. We see that 6 out of 10 businesses do not use individual sales quotas. Now, the business owner and the sales rep may have a completely different idea about what's a good or a bad performance. If you don't know what the goal is, how do you know when you get there? How do you know during the course of the year if you're doing well or not, unless you've got a target and are able to move against that? So how can you even accurately compensate your sales team unless you have them a goal to meet or exceed? So that's something we often see. And an astonishing 8 out of 10 companies don't have a sales forecasting tool. They don't know what their revenue is going to be beyond this month. And so they can't project their cash. They can't see how their salespeople are doing, if they're going to be on track, if they're going to come up short, if any corrective actions need to be taken. And so how can you plan your spending if you don't know what's going to happen with your business? And it is possible to know that. We'll talk about that some more in a few minutes. 8 out of 10 also haven't done an annual performance review on their sales reps in the past 3 years. In the same way that a lot of them don't have forecasting, don't have goals, they also don't have a performance management system. And I'm not talking about a really elaborate HR-driven, 360 review system. I'm talking about sitting down with your people regularly, talking about their goals, talking about their successes, talking about their skills and areas for improvement. And it just seems to be rare that a business owner will clearly define their expectations, set goals, and hold people accountable to them. And that's just basic sales management techniques that a lot of people just don't know how to do or just don't consistently do. And then as we're getting even worse, 9 out of 10 don't have or don't use effectively a customer relationship management or CRM system. Many of them don't even know what that is, although the percentage that know what it is improving, but the vast majority don't use it or don't use it very well. So, ask them if you have a chance to talk to them, what CRM are you using? There's lots of them out there. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes as well. But without a CRM system, you can't have good visibility into what your sales reps are doing, what the customers are doing, what the interactions with them are. And again, we'll talk about that some more in a minute. And another 9 out of 10 do not have a sales compensation plan that actually incents the behavior that they're seeking. And so when we meet with business owners, we hear they're disappointed that they're not getting new revenue. They're not getting the right profit margins. They've got certain products that they want to push, and the sales of those aren't doing as well as they had hoped. And this frustration stems from their team is selling ways they wish they wouldn't. And the main lever that you have are the performance reviews and the compensation plan. So the fault lies with the owner, not necessarily the sales team, in that not structuring how you manage the people to generate the behaviors that you want. So we've talked about some of the things that we see that are kind of surprising. And this is across the country and across different industries. But so let's talk about kind of what the top 10 reasons are why sales are not increasing as planned, and how you can go about making sure that that doesn't happen to your company, and you can fix it, or you can, when you come across your clients and you see things aren't working right, some things to look for and maybe get them some help. And so we're going to pay a little bit of homage to Dave Letterman, and we're going to count down from 10 to 1 in order of importance, the things that prevent sales performing the way it should. So number 10, sales meetings should be conducted weekly. A lot of businesses don't do this very consistently. And so they should include your entire sales team together as a group and individual one-on-one meetings. So your group meeting should be 30 to 60 minutes every week. It should focus on sort of group subjects, not individual things, but focus on group issues, industry news, competitive moves that everybody needs to be aware of. Now, I was in a company that one of the turnaround situations I was in, we made this a very dynamic organization. We had a global sales meeting every week, and we had people from Europe, people from the US, and people from Asia on this call every week. And we knew immediately, the whole company knew what was going on around the world, competitive moves, customer moves, and we could react faster and get inside our competitors' decision loop because we were already reacting to the situation. Say, a company in India called us and said they couldn't get product. Could we please supply them? Meanwhile, the company in the United States is saying, we need a price reduction or we're going to your competitor. Well, we already know that the competitor can't supply it. So we have information by having those kind of meetings, and everybody can be aware of what the priorities are and what's happening in the business. But in addition to that, you need to have your one-on-one meetings with your salespeople. And they shouldn't be about compliance. They should be about coaching, helping your salespeople drive revenue, planning for key account visits they've got coming up, reviewing things that go well, things that don't. And so come to that meeting prepared, look at the CRM system first so you're prepared. And the format for these should be the same every week so that your sales reps can also prepare and know what to expect and what to, you don't walk into the meeting and have the deer in the headlights look. You know what your sales manager is going to ask, and you're ready to talk about it, and you know what issues to bring forward. So this is a coaching opportunity, and it helps you keep the pulse on what your sales team is doing. Okay, let's move on. Number 9, ineffective sales training. I just spent a fortune sending my whole sales team to this sales training thing, and not a dang thing changed. How long have you heard that? So this happens all the time. Rather than sending your people to massive sales training programs, not everybody needs the same training. That's rarely the case, unless you were just implementing a whole new system for some reason. But spend time in your field with your reps, determine what kind of training they need individually, and provide them the coaching and the training individually that they need to move them to a higher skill level. Sales is a skill. It can be taught, it can be learned, it can be practiced. And so help each individual develop those skills that they need. And don't just role play to test competency, role play to determine where the training is needed. And spend the time with your people doing that rather than massive sales training programs. We have partners at Sales Acceleration that we work with that do sales training, but we often recommend that it be done by the sales manager or by an outside resource that's focused on the individual needs. Number 8, no annual performance reviews. I mentioned this earlier. Lots of companies just don't do this regularly. So we should be in the habit of sitting down regularly, even weekly, to talk with our sales employees. The reality is that often doesn't happen. And having a performance review process ensures that it will occur. Not only will it give you a chance to review your sales team's performance, but it can also set goals for the next period. So you never want to have to put an employee through a performance improvement process or threaten them or something like that. You want to work with them through the year, meet with them regularly, talk about their goals. You have goals, don't you? And so make sure we're moving forward and get them the coaching that they need to make it successful. And if there are obstacles inside your company that are impeding that sales rep's effectiveness, you need to find out what those are. And it's your job as the leader of the company or as the sales leader to remove those roadblocks, remove those hurdles, and help your people succeed. Number 7, and we alluded to this earlier, it's very common that companies don't have or don't utilize their CRM system. They're vital to recording key information. So the CRM system, should be used effectively and consistently by your sales team. It needs to be customized to your sales process, to your terminology, to your customer's buying process. And so your team always has the same same terminology, and everything is recorded in there. All of your calls, your emails, your marketing things, it's all recorded in this CRM, so everybody can see what communications have happened with this customer and how they are in coming along in the sales process. So that becomes the foundation for your sales effectiveness. It becomes the foundation for your goals and for your dashboard and your tracking of everything on a week-to-week and month-to-month basis. So a lot of them are available on the marketplace. Most of them are pretty good, but you need to get some help or be careful picking the one that meets your needs as a company. Some of them are better at marketing program integration, some are better at operations and ERP system integration, and some are bigger, some are smaller and less expensive. And so just do your homework, review what's available, and make sure that it meets your needs, but also that you spend the time and effort to customize it to fit your sales process. So number 6, no sales pipeline forecasting tool. So we talked about the CRM, and that is the tool that's used for sales forecasting. So how do you know what to spend? How do your clients know what to spend if you don't know what your revenue is going to be? And without proper forecasting, you can't know. And again, this is something that most small to medium-sized businesses just don't do very well. So the key is to be accurate, to use that CRM system with discipline, to have every prospect recorded in that system where they are in the process, and make sure that when you do forecasting, you place an emphasis on accuracy and don't create incentives for sandbagging. I was in a company several years ago where the way the company did forecasts, my sales team had to spend a week out of every month explaining what they did last month and forecasting the next month in detail by customer, by product, by container, by week. And it just became a tremendous process. And everybody was always incented to sandbag it and try to diminish what they were promising, because they were destroyed if you ever came out underneath your numbers. But the incentive should be to be accurate, not that you kill somebody if they miss their number by 3%, but have the emphasis be on accuracy and take out any disincentives that result in sandbagging or trying to game the system. You want the CRM and your forecast to give you a true vision of what's happening in the company, so you can know where resources need to be directed and where people need some help. And if you have any questions on this, just chime in and put them in the chat room. Let me know if anything doesn't make sense, if you want to ask about it. So number 5, an improperly staffed sales team. So first of all, a sales team needs to be led by a sales manager. It takes one to know one, and you need a sales leader which understands how to do that. Now, if your business owner wants to lead the sales team, him or herself, that can be done. But if sales isn't their expertise, they should really consider getting somebody either on a fractional basis or a full-time basis that really knows and understands the tools and the levers for sales effectiveness. But so you need the right people in the right seats, and not just you want a salesperson, but not all sales positions are the same. So look at your sales team. You've got the sales plan, you've got your territories, but what is the right structure? What kind of person do you need in each of those roles? You need to balance, inside sales reps, outside sales reps. We've talked about hunters, that are generating new business and are really good at that, farmers that are really good at managing existing accounts. Do you divide up your sales team by account, by territory, by product, by industry, by market? So there's all kinds of ways to win a game. But how a team is structured depends on what needs to be done, what your goals are for the company, and what the priorities are. And then so you assess what the needs are, and then you look at your skill set and you put the right people in the right seats, and maybe you have to go outside and add the right people if necessary to get the right skill sets in place, or upgrade them if you can with training and coaching. But the fundamental thing is you need to do some analysis, do your homework, and understand what the team needs to do to be successful. So moving along, number 4, reasons why sales come in below expectations. First of all, is that a lot of companies don't have clearly defined sales goals. But even many that do don't have clearly defined metrics on how to achieve those goals. It's kind of like, you have a marathon race coming up and you decide just at random, I'm going to run a mile today, I'm going to run 5 miles tomorrow, I'm going to run a mile on Thursday, and maybe I'll run 17 miles on the weekend. But you're not going to get there. You're going to show up at the marathon, have no idea if you're capable of doing that or not. So you have to have a plan. And you have to know as you're running the race, if you're on track, if you have the capability, if you're at the right pace to be successful at it. So, when you look at a sales team, you have things that you want to accomplish for your company. That has to be translated into clear sales goals and clear metrics. So if you want to sell $12 million instead of $10 million, what specifically has to happen for that to occur? What has to happen every week? What has to happen every day for your sales reps to get to that eventual goal? How many meetings do they have to have? How many proposals do they have to do? How many bids do they have to win? How many calls do they need to have? So all those things, yes, you can get crazy with it, and you can manage to metrics at the expense of actually selling anything. And I'm not talking about that. We've all seen, the humorous, disconnected sales manager that says, well, you need to make so many calls a day, and it doesn't matter, if you've just increased the sales of the company by 50%, you didn't make that number this week. That's not what it's about. It's about knowing what has to happen for the company to be successful, having that dashboard and keeping it on track, knowing who's doing the right things that are going to be successful and who's kind of falling behind the activity curve and are unlikely to meet the target. So find out what's happening, know if there's a problem before it gets to be a crisis. And so in order to do that, you need to establish for your team what a good versus bad looks like. It isn't fair that you just have an opinion. You say, well, you're not doing what I want you to do. So you have goals, you have objectives, you have metrics, you run your business on that basis. And yes, you need your experienced salespeople that know how to manage a client, know how to close the deals, but you also have to have everybody following a process. And so you can see, we're running that marathon. When you get to the 12-mile mark, are you at the pace that you can sustain and is going to get you there at the end of that race at the end of the day? So have those goals, manage your team. And again, that requires discipline, it requires thought, and it requires an effective CRM system in order to know with your dashboard what's happening on a day-to-day and week-by-week basis. So people are operating at the pace that's going to result in achieving the goals or not. So as we get to number 3, and these are starting to get to be the real serious ones that really have to be done right. And so if you're going to be successful, and as Scott said, I'm an engineer, but I'm a sales guy too. So you need both. You need the people skills, yes. You need to be sensitive, yes, but you also need to have a process. You need to do things in a defined way so you know when you've done them. And so you know when your people are done them. So you start out with, what is the customer's buying process? What steps does the customer go through from your initial awareness of your company through learning about your products? What information does the customer share with you? What information do you share with the customer? And how does that customer move forward? How does that prospect move forward to becoming a customer? So you first start out documenting that buyer's sales process. And you have that terminology. Everybody in your company uses that common language, that common understanding. And then so you build your sales process to be parallel with and match that buying process. So now you define steps of your sales process that correspond to the buyer's, mental awareness and process of becoming a customer. And so what has to happen? What questions have to be answered? What tasks have to be done before that buyer moves from stage 4 to stage 5? Are they ready for a proposal? Are they ready for an in-person meeting? Are they ready for a technical trial? I used to be in the chemical industry, so sometimes the buying process might take 2 or 3 years of testing and trials and qualifications before you could actually make a sale. So that process goes on, and different companies, different products have different degrees of complexity and different sales cycles, but they all have a process. And so the key is that you have a common language and understanding. You have defined checkpoints that are part of the sales process, and everybody uses that language. So when you have your weekly meetings with your sales reps and they say, this customer just moved from, a qualified prospect to a proposal stage. And so those are words that you define in your company. Everybody uses those words and it knows what they mean. And that also can be used with your CRM system to automate the next step. So when a customer gets to that step, these are the tasks which have to be done. These are the people that have to do them. These are when they need to be done. These are the questions that have to be answered before then customer is ready to move to the next step. So when the sales rep says, yes, I've checked all those boxes, this customer is now in stage 5, then, or whatever you call that stage in your company, then your CRM system then automatically generates a list of tasks and assigns them to all the people in the company that have to do stuff to move that customer forward in the next stage of their process. So all that is automated. You have tasks, you have assignments, you have responsibilities, you have deadlines and a schedule. And then because of your experience, that the probability of moving that customer from stage 4 to stage 5 to stage 6 is 50%, goes to 60%, goes to 80%. And that's then how you build your sales forecast. So you have this many customers of this size in this step, and the probability of success at that stage is this. And so all of them, that becomes the basis of your sales forecast. So you have a process, you have a forecast, everything ties and follows from that defined sales process. And everybody's doing the same thing in the same way with the same terminology. And yes, there's still plenty of room for your sales reps' ingenuity and expertise and customer relationship. All that's still important. But you have the language, you have a way to know if your people are moving forward. And you can, by having the process, which everybody can talk about in the same way, then you can manage your sales funnel. You know what's happening, you know who's supposed to do what. And there's no just guessing, I haven't heard from that customer in a month. I wonder whatever happened to them. And the customer is waiting for information that nobody followed up with. So, have that process, have those tasks defined, and that follow-up be automated and assigned with deadlines. So that way you can track it as the sales manager, as the owner of the company, and know what's happening and what needs to happen next for that prospect to become a customer. And so this is not an easy thing. It takes a lot of work to set up, but if you do it correctly, again, having the right people and the right process means the right things happen and your sales will grow. Number two, so having a comp plan. And I talk about this a lot with my clients. I just sat down with one the other day, and the client said, "Oh, yeah, I want to hire some unemployed single moms and give them 100% commission. And that'll be no risk on my part. I can hire a bunch of them and they'll go out and generate revenue for me." No, that's not going to work. You're going to waste 6 months and you're going to come back and talk to me again. You need to start with your sales process. You need to understand what you want your sales reps to do, what behaviors will support your goals and your process, and then build your compensation plan to incent that behavior. So salespeople, this has been my experience. They're relatively simple creatures. They do what you incent them to do. So we take on the activities that are going to generate the highest rewards for us, mostly in terms of money. I guarantee when I give my salespeople their bonus plan for the next year, their commission plan, within 30 minutes, they know exactly what has to be done, which clients they want to focus on, what activities they're going to do to maximize that. They've got their calculators out, and before even the meeting is done, they know what they're going to do this year. So the business owner needs to not just pick something out of the blue and not say, "Oh, it's just going to be 100% commission and we're just going to pay on this, we're going to pay on that." Design thoughtfully your compensation plan so that you will ensure that the sales team, when they exploit the plan to make the most money for themselves, they do that by doing exactly the things you want them to do. So make sure it's built for the salesperson and the company to win and lose together. So you share that risk, but you also share in the success. So don't build a plan that doesn't have both sides in harmony, because management wants the sales team to do something and the sales team don't want to do it because it's wasting their time and they're not going to get any reward for that. I had a sales rep once that the company was asking the sales rep to spend 20% of his time taking care of this key account over in this other state, and the sales rep got 0 commission for the success of that account. All that commission went to some other guy who never saw the client. And, needless to say, that sales rep wasn't too enthusiastic about doing, he was a really good guy. He wasn't, that he didn't care about the company's success, but he had no skin in the game on this customer's relationship that he was asked to be in charge of. So look carefully at what you're asking people to do and make sure that it's consistent with what you're paying them to do, and the behaviors that you want them to accomplish result in the maximum benefit for them. And so if your company goals are to increase your profit margins, are they to increase your number of new accounts? Is your priority to increase your revenues from existing accounts? Or is your priority to launch a new product and to get that developed? So think about what your priorities are and build your compensation plan to emphasize that, and so that the sales reps will do what you want them to do. And you can go overboard with that. You don't want a commission plan that has 10 different components in it, of which 5 of them they have no control over. But make it do the things you want them to do. So for example, again, in my experience in the chemical industry, I wanted my people to push price increases pretty aggressively. I knew that was one of our key corporate goals, was to increase our margins. And we also wanted them to get out and expand our customer list and not just focus on existing business, because you could spend 100% of your time just babysitting your existing account. So I paid on commission was designed to emphasize my gross margins, not just the revenue number, but the margin number. And I paid a bonus commission for new accounts that were new in the last, say, 2 years. And so in addition to their goals, their revenues, their commissions they would earn would have kickers on it for doing the things that I wanted them to do. So they'd be paid, they would get more money and more commission if they were successful at pushing those price increases. They would get more commission if on a new account than they would on an existing account. So they were incented to spend some effort developing that new account, not just trying to farm the existing account. So emphasize that. And so a well-designed compensation plan drives the behaviors that you want. And also, if you do it right, it'll help you attract and keep a better salesperson than you deserve. And what I mean by that is that a good salesperson will look at their plan. They will see, okay, at a minimum, what do I have to do to make 100% of my goal? But more likely, a good one will look at what can they get if they overdrive that to 120%, 140% or beyond of that goal. So design a plan with a large upside for your sales reps, and you'll get the salesperson better than you've ever had in the company. I've heard of some business owners that would say, well, I can't do that. You know, if the sales rep does that, they're going to make more money than me. And my answer is, who cares? It's your company. If that sales rep is doubling your business and you're writing, you know, have that money flowing into your bank, you'll be happy to write that check to that sales rep because they're driving your business. So give that sales rep a big upside, because if they succeed, you succeed as the business owner, and that will help you attract and retain your best people and drive them to optimum performance. So rather than put a cap on their commission, have it accelerate when they get above their 100% goal. Have it be really generous if they over deliver, and that will attract and keep your best sales reps. Any questions on that? I'm a little bit passionate about that because I've seen it done wrong so often, and so many companies just end up underutilizing their people and demotivating them by the way in which they compensate them. And then it becomes, well, the beatings will continue until morale improves, right? I've seen that a lot as well. Okay, so now moving forward, what is our number one item? And that is having a detailed sales business plan. You will have a greater chance of hitting your goal if you have a goal. Start with that. So you must know, it's a lot like our discussion about the marathon. So, or setting out on a vacation. So you're going on a vacation with your family. Do you take a map? Do you have a GPS? Do you have a destination? Or you just get in the car and start driving and see what happens? Most people do the former. So how will you know if you get there, right? Unless you know where you're going. So having a business plan is the first step. Putting it in writing is next, and sharing it with others. So you have to have, again, starting out with what your company goals, what are your priorities, what do you want to achieve this year? And then, as I said, does that depend on improving margins? Does it depend on increasing sales at existing accounts? Does it depend on launching new products? Does it depend on bringing in accounts in a new territory or a new industry? What are those things that are your priorities? Write it down and share it with your people so you can get them on board. But you also have to spend the time to break that down into your team and company goals. How is that broken down by product and by market? And then that then flows down to your individual sales goals, individual sales reps, products, market, verticals, by account, by decision makers, and all those goals have to be new and existing business and as much detail as you can go in. And that sort of defines then what you want people to do. They understand what the emphasis is, what the goals are, and how that ties in to their compensation plan, because again, you built a smart compensation plan based on this detailed business plan. So then finally, all those goals have to be what we call SMART goals. You probably have heard this before. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So when you give people their individual goals and you can review them with them, not only the annual review, but quarterly and even regularly as you meet with them every week, and see how they're moving forward, how they're accomplishing toward those goals. Now you have your CRM system and you can track the activities that support those goals. Are these things happening? And so are you going in the right direction? Are you going at the right speed? Are you going at a pace which will allow you at the end of the year to be successful at achieving those goals? So, these are all things which, plague so many small businesses, and a lot of them, can be done successfully and will help a business to grow. At Sales Acceleration, we do this all the time. We talk to small business owners and we work as fractional VP of sales or as a temporary sales advisor to help them build this foundation. Business plan, we start with what is your unique selling proposition? What are your company priorities? And translate that into, what's necessary to be successful. These sales infrastructure components they involve people, having the right people, they involve motivation, they involve process. But if you put all 10 together, they result in profit. So I've been doing this for all of my career. We at Sales Acceleration do it every day with our clients, and it's really that simple. So I haven't had any questions yet. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about or like to elaborate on anything?
Val has her hand up. Go ahead, Val.
Thanks, Chris. I'm a chemical engineer by degree also, so I can relate to you.
Great.
I loved it. I did want to mention I am a content and copywriter, content creator and copywriter, and most people think of copywriting with marketing, but I went through a training in August for sales enablement copy. Sales managers are basically enabling their sales team to have assets that are helping them with the sales process. So I did want to mention that to suggest maybe you include at least mentioning that in one of your steps, maybe number 9, 10 or 9, I guess. And just a thought, because I do see more activity there. So I want to bring that up.
And you're absolutely right. When you build that plan, the marketing, the content needs to support that. When you're building your sales process, that you get all the way into the details of what is the sales message. You can get into scripting if you want, for your inside salespeople or for your lead generation people. But all of that content, the marketing content, your brochures, your websites, everything needs to have that same message of what your company wants to achieve and what it's striving for and what their unique selling proposition is. You're absolutely correct. And that's critical to enabling your people to be successful. You're very much correct.
Right. I do want to clarify though, because again, what I learned was the marketing versus sales, a different twist on the copy. And so it's pretty interesting. It was a great training for me. So I just wanted to make sure people know that they're actually they're separate.
They are separate. They have separate functions, but they need to connect.
That's true. That's true. Cohesiveness is important for everything. I'm big on that. Thank you.
The value, the priorities, the strategy, the goals. I mean, all your salespeople's goals have to derive from your company goals and priorities, which also should be consistent with what your marketing message is. So if your marketing collateral and your content and your website are saying something different than you're telling your salespeople to say, then those kind of disconnects happen. And a good CRM system, if you're using strategic marketing for lead generation, for promoting your company, that also needs to be tied in with your CRM system. So those customer contacts and moving that sales process through starts from your very first messaging to that customer. And do they click on that message? Do they go to the website? Do they look at things? So all of that can be tracked also and included in the CRM system. That's good.
Awesome. Chris, with the time left, I would like to ask everyone to put in the chat, and I'll give you 1 second to think about this. I'll put you in the hot seat here, Chris. Write down your 2 favorite sales books in the chat. And then Chris, give him a minute, and I'd like to ask you to answer that question as well, if you're willing. So write down your favorite sales books. I think one of the key things Chris mentioned is sales can be trained. More importantly, you can get better at it.
That's right.
Like everything. And I think the other key point is, it's not unlike nutrition or working out at the gym or anything else. The more frequently you do it and the more often you go back and visit it, the more likely you are to succeed. So if you will, write down your 2 favorite sales books in the chat. And Chris, do you have a couple of you recommend?
Well, I really, don't have, specific favorites, but I always go back to the real basics from decades ago, like Zig Ziglar, and the ones, I can't remember who wrote it, but the secrets of being a successful person and an effective communicator. I mean, all those kinds of classics I keep going back to, but I can't think of a couple of favorites off the top of my head.
We've got a few in the chat there. Yeah, you can never go wrong with Zig Ziglar and Dale Carnegie, that's for sure.
In the sales acceleration, we actually partner with the Dale Carnegie organization as well, and recommend them for companies when they do want to have a customized training program. Again, there's for a lot of small companies, they don't necessarily need that. The bigger ones might, if they have a lot of new and less skilled salespeople. But for the smaller ones, they probably need more individualized skills assessment and training.
Write down anyone that you have that you follow on either a podcast or some other type of media that's a great salesperson. I'm going to write in one myself here.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the share here. Winning through intimidation. That's a good one.
Chris, I have a question.
There's a lot of classics that are great.
Chris, I have a question.
Yeah.
All right. Can you give an example of connecting our message from what we have on the website to what we tell our sales team?
Yeah. I mean, for example, I worked for a company that had a very dynamic organization, which was focused on, it wasn't a dynamic organization when I got there. It was a stagnant company. They hadn't grown in 10 years, but we had turned the company around to become a dynamic growth company focused on customer service and technical support. And then we started taking a look at the sales literature. The company didn't even have a website back then. This was in the 90s, and they just had the most rudimentary website. But their sales literature was dating back to the 60s, and the messaging was all, irrelevant, out of date, and it didn't support or was not consistent with what the company's new attitude and priorities were. So, for example, as I said, we were getting inside the competitors' decision loops. We were responsive. We were had the best customer service and the best technical support, but our literature, our marketing, our messaging was dinosaurish. And so the company had to spend a fair amount of effort and money to not only bring it up to be the same kind of contemporary image that the company wanted to portray in their culture, but also to represent the value that we were frankly charging extra for our clients. We started charging for value, pricing to value because of that, and differentiating those customers that pay for that value. But our literature and our website just didn't support that at all. So it had to have a pretty major overhaul. And that's fairly common especially among the smaller businesses that, they started out, they built a rudimentary, WordPress site or something like that, and just didn't keep up with it as their business started to grow. And especially as you start to really pay attention to setting your goals and defining your differentiation and your selling messages, go back and look again at your literature, look at your websites. And I certainly have people locally that I work with that I can recommend to clients, and can really turn around those things and make sure that the connections are there between the marketing, the literature, the messaging, and your sales messages of your team and your sales process. So it's all giving the same values, the same messages to your customer. That's absolutely correct.
Awesome.
Sorry,
I
that's
want
kind
to
of
point out, Coach Hess pointed out Donald Miller. If you don't follow Donald Miller on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend it. Great sales stuff.
It is good.
Obviously, there are others, Grant Cardone, but I really like Donald Miller. This kind of thing. I want to ask you a question, Chris. Again, putting you in the hot seat. Anyone else, feel free to answer here. Tell me 2 or 3 things that have changed about sales over the last 25 years.
Oh, how much time have we got left? 25 years ago. Okay. 25 years ago, I'm trying to remember if I had a cell phone. No, I didn't. I had the first cell phone I had was a brick. I mean, it was the size of a brick. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that. I remember, the technology certainly has changed. We had pay phones, we had calling cards, we had laptops that we had to go into a hotel, and I had to have a toolkit so that I could unwire the hotel's telephone and connect it to my modem from my laptop. And so that has changed. Today, my sales reps can, in the parking lot before they go in to see a customer, they can have 100% up to the moment information on what all the contacts have been with that customer. They can see the CRM system, they can see the ERP system, they know whether that company is behind on any of their invoices, what the status is of their orders, and all of that's available on their fingertips in 5 minutes before they go see the client. So that's technology. What's changed culturally is especially that the people don't have time anymore. Companies have become very lean, responsibilities have become broader with fewer people. And so, we used to be able to just drive down the road and stop in and see a customer without an appointment. And you could chat up the receptionist, chat up the person receiving. Maybe you'd get a chance to talk to the buyer and say hi, ask if their kid won his football game on Friday night, or ask them about the fishing picture on the wall or something like that. So you would know your people and you could chat with them, you could see them casually. And that's rare anymore. People don't even want in-person visits a lot of times. So you're doing it remotely. Sometimes it's just much more difficult to develop that relationship and understanding and empathy with somebody that you only see on a Zoom call, and you don't see their knickknacks on their desk. You don't get to chat up the receptionist. You don't get to see what competitors are in the waiting room with you. So there's a lot of stuff that's missing there. So you need to be really careful about your communications. You need to upgrade your skills in body language, gestures, and use effectively your other communication methods with your emails and websites and things like that to try to build that rapport and that relationship, even in spite of the handicap of not being able to go to lunch or to play golf or to chit chat as much with your buyers. That's probably the single biggest thing that's changed.
Yeah.
Even
I would add to that. Authenticity. It seems like 25 years ago, I was telling Chris before we started, I can't believe it. My 21-year-old can't believe that every week I wake up and I have to sell something to feed myself, but it's been that way for 35 years. And when I started sales, it was all about getting the win. Just get the order at all costs, whatever. You walked out either a winner or loser. Didn't matter if the customer won or lost. And today, a sophisticated buyer sees right through that. So to me, it's all about authenticity. Whether you have the technology or whatever, you've got to be authentic and empathetic to be a successful salesperson.
I would add to that, Scott, that customers are more demanding that you don't walk in and show them your bullet points and your features and benefits. You need to know already before you talk to that customer what that customer's business is about, what they need. Do as much research as you can, or at least in your very earliest communications, understand and come to the meeting with the message of what problems your product is going to solve for them that you already know are relevant to them.
Yeah.
And so very much solution selling, not just my product is these features and benefits, but here's the problem that I think you have. Validate that is something that's important to them, and explain how your product will solve that problem for them.
Totally agree. We've got a couple of minutes left. Is there any other questions of Chris? I want to show you a couple little added benefits, if I may. But before I go there, any questions of Chris? Let me just show you real quick, if you'll stay with me. You know, I talk often that we're all about wanting to add value for your membership at Network in Action. And so we have two things. Number one, if you do not see on your Network in Action login this little CRM button, just let your franchise owner know. This is a free CRM system that we provide all members, and your franchise owner can add that to your dashboard for anyone that would like that. So right there is a free CRM system. And then lastly, under Business Solutions, Network in Action University is a 24/7 backend platform. And if you want to enhance your sales skills, just create yourself a login. And there's all kinds of sales courses here under Sales Mastery. You just click on, and I guarantee you it will take you more than 20 or 30 hours to go through all of these different modules that are there for you free of charge for you and your employees. So I hope you'll take advantage of those if you like. Those are both in the top right-hand corner of your platform. I always honor you guys for stopping and sharpening your saw. And I appreciate all of you taking time out. I know it's our most valuable commodity. Chris, thank you so much for stepping in and helping us today.
My pleasure. Thanks,
Hope
Scott.
we'll see you next Wednesday on the speaker series. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Scott.
And
Thank you.